On a sweltering day in July 1762, the royal court of Joseon gathered in stunned silence. The order had come directly from the throne. Crown Prince Sado, born Joseon, would not be executed by sword or poison. Instead, he would climb into a large wooden rice chest. The lid would be sealed, guards would stand watch, and the heir to the throne would be left to die. This was not simply punishment, it was calculation. In a Confucian monarchy, royal blood was sacred. To strike down a crown prince outright risked desecrating the dynasty's moral foundation. But confinement, allowing death by heat and thirst, could be framed as tragic necessity rather than public regicide. The method was brutal, yet politically deliberate. For 8 days, sounds were said to come from inside the chest. Then silence. When it ended, Joseon had preserved its throne, but at a cost that would stain its history forever. Born to carry a dynasty, Crown Prince Sado was born on February 13, 1735, in the royal palaces of Hansung, today's Seoul. His father, King Yongjo, ruled a kingdom shaped by rigid Confucian principles and intense factional rivalry. Sado was not originally destined to inherit the throne, but after the death of his elder half-brother, he became the primary heir while still a child. From that moment, his life ceased to be personal. He was no longer merely a son, he was the living guarantee of dynastic continuity. In Joseon, the crown prince embodied stability, ritual authority, and moral perfection. Expectations were not high, they were absolute. Yongjo, a king who had survived conspiracies and factional threats, believed discipline was the foundation of order. That belief shaped how he raised his son. Praise was rare, scrutiny was constant. Every flaw became evidence of potential failure. A mind under pressure. Historical accounts, especially the memoirs written later by Sado's wife, Lady Haegong, describe a young prince who showed signs of deep psychological distress. He reportedly suffered episodes of extreme fear and paranoia. One famous account tells of his terror after reading a Taoist text, during which he believed he had seen a thunder god. Whether hallucination or metaphorical exaggeration, the story reflects the perception that something inside him was unraveling. Modern historians are cautious about retroactive diagnosis, but the descriptions point towards severe mental instability. What is certain is that the court increasingly viewed him as unpredictable and unstable. Under the crushing weight of expectation, fear became isolation. Isolation hardened into resentment, and resentment, in time, would turn outward, from anxiety to violence. By his 20s, Sado's behavior had become deeply alarming. Accounts describe sudden rages, extreme phobias, and increasingly violent outbursts within the palace. Servants and attendants reportedly lived in fear of being summoned or blamed for imagined slights. Lady Haegong's memoirs recount episodes in which the prince struck or killed attendants during fits of anger. Whether every detail is exact or shaped by hindsight, the consistent pattern is clear: the palace no longer felt safe. The tragedy of Sado lies partly in this contradiction. He appears to have been both deeply troubled and genuinely dangerous. He was not merely misunderstood, his actions caused real terror. Yet those actions also unfolded within an environment of relentless scrutiny, factional politics, and paternal severity. The breaking point of 1762. By 1762, whispers had grown too loud to ignore. Some reports suggested Sado had threatened officials and possibly even posed danger to the king. Whether these rumors were exaggerated by political rivals or rooted in genuine fear, King Yongjo faced a catastrophic dilemma. Executing a crown prince outright would destabilize the dynasty and scandalize the realm. Allowing him to remain free risked chaos within the palace. Doing nothing was no longer an option. On July 4, 1762, Yongjo summoned his son to the courtyard. There, in front of officials and attendants, he ordered Sado to climb into a wooden rice chest. The symbolism was deliberate. It avoided the spectacle of blood while ensuring finality. The lid was closed. For days, the prince's cries were reportedly heard from within. On the 8th day, July 12, he was dead. A kingdom that mourned in silence. Outwardly, the Joseon court did what it had always done in moments of crisis. It continued. Rituals were performed with the same precision. Officials bowed in the same measured rhythm. Memorials were read, seals were stamped, and governance moved forward as if nothing irreversible had occurred. In a Confucian monarchy, stability was not optional, it was sacred. Public disorder would have suggested that the mandate of heaven itself was wavering. So the court preserved its composure. But behind the painted screens and lacquered doors, grief and shock lingered. Those who had stood guard outside the rice chest carried the memory in silence. Lady Haiging, who could do nothing but listen as her husband's voice weakened, would later record the horror of that week in restrained but devastating detail. The palace did not erupt in open mourning, it absorbed the tragedy and folded it into ritual language. King Yongzhou's later decision to restore his son's status posthumously and grant him the name Sado, often interpreted as thinking of with sorrow, reveals the emotional complexity beneath the political act. It was not a reversal, nor an admission of error, but it was not indifference either. It suggests a father who justified his choice as necessary for the realm, yet could not entirely escape the weight of what he had done. Sado's son, Joseon, survived the catastrophe. When he later ascended the throne as King Jeonjo, he ruled with a reputation for reform-minded governance and intellectual engagement. Yet his reign could never be separated from the trauma of his father's death. Every reform, every act of consolidation, unfolded under the shadow of that rice chest. The tragedy did not fade into obscurity, it transformed into legend, retold in whispers, recorded in memoirs, and debated for generations. Madness, politics, or both? Historians still debate Sado's legacy. Was he primarily a mentally ill man destroyed by a rigid system? Was he a violent prince whose instability forced his father's hand? Or was he a tragic mixture of both? Lady Haiging's memoirs portray him as deeply troubled, but also shaped by relentless criticism and impossible expectations. Other scholars emphasize the political context, factional rivalries that may have amplified or exploited his instability. What remains undeniable is that his story exposes the darker logic of absolute monarchy. In a system where image and ritual mattered as much as reality, even a king could sacrifice his own son to preserve the throne's dignity. The rice chest, as symbol. The wooden rice chest has endured as more than a historical detail. It symbolizes a monarchy trapped between duty and blood, between paternal love and political survival. It represents a world where untreated illness and unchecked authority could collide with catastrophic consequences. Crown Prince Sado never ruled. He left no reforms, no victorious campaigns, no golden era. Instead, he left a warning. His life shows how private torment can become public disaster. His death shows how power can choose preservation over compassion. And centuries later, the image of a sealed wooden chest in a palace courtyard still lingers, an echo of sorrow that Joseon could never fully silence. History isn't just about kings and crowns, it's about the fragile minds and impossible choices that shape entire nations. If you found this deep dive into Joseon's darkest royal tragedy compelling, make sure you like and subscribe for more powerful stories from history that still echo today.